Sunset Conversations is a live stream project which brings in conversation international art-related people. It is an alternative to superficial IG story content, to build up something with a stronger intellectual value.
Session number 12, Sunset Conversations. Waiting for Ruf Dug, also known as Simon from Manchester. Here we go.
Yes!
Great.
Oh man.
No worries at all.
Oh, technology. Hello, Matteo. How are you?
I'm great. Thanks for being here. I'm just adjusting my camera as well.
That's okay.
So we're just going to have this sort of sun printed on my face, but it doesn't look bad anyway.
I'm in Manchester, so any opportunity to see the sun is always welcome, you know.
Great, fantastic, Ruf. So Simon, I've got lots of questions to ask you. Thanks for being here. And I really feel connected to your music, and been listening to your show very often. So I'm really glad you're here today. So why you choose Ruf Dug as your DJ? First of all.
Oh, you know, I wish I had a really good story. I should think of a really good origin story, but the truth is, it came very, very quickly. I just moved back to Manchester after living away for a long time. I was writing some music. I wrote this piece of music, a sort of rough disco tune, and I thought, this sounds like it's been made by a new person. So I just thought immediately, like Ruf Dug, but spelled conventionally R-O-U-G-H, and then Dug is short for Douglas. I thought this would be that he sounds like, Ruf Dug sounds like a cool guy, and then I thought, well, I'm just going to spell it.
It definitely sounds like a good name, and it also has a meaning in English, like Ruf Dug itself. So I was confused whether you meant the rough dog or the Ruf Dug.
No, well, I mean, all the confusion that subsequently come about, and all the various interpretations, I enjoy, and can also. There was no thinking going on, Matteo. There was zero. It just came. Ruf Dug sounds like a cool name. I'm going to spell it wrong. And that's it. That's the entire process from start to finish. Anything else is post-party. I should come up with a really clever story, but
no. I like simple stories.
Yeah.
They're really human, and sometimes we just push stories too much to make them sound like they're very intellectual and very nice. But at the end, it's just a game, because sometimes we construct these arguments afterwards. After we find a name, perhaps we just find a nice story around it, and it's just quite sincere and nice to say. I don't know how it came out, but it's great.
It's quite nice that it is so open to misinterpretation or to reinterpretation. People are Ruf Dug. I've been called. I get called lots of different names. And then the real name is Simon as well. Then when people meet me, they're like, "Oh, do we call you Ruf? Do we call you Dug?" So it's nice.
Great. No, I mean, fantastic story. So I want to ask you something very simple again. Could be also quite stupid for us to answer these questions, but I think they're very important to get them sometimes. You're a DJ. My father called you a disc jockey. He still uses the old label. Very often, I'm a contemporary artist, so sometimes people ask me, are you an artist? Like, meaning, do you paint? There is a big confusion between being an artist and painting. Like, people think that a painter is an artist. And the same with musicians and DJs. There's been always a bit of a confusion, and I think lots of people, they don't refer to DJs as musicians. And I mean, things have changed quite a lot recently, but I also felt, like music producers and DJs, they always had a fight for their label as musicians, while I really believe that even a computational producer is definitely a musician, as a composer is a musician, even if he doesn't play an instrument. So how do you find yourself fighting with this let's say, debate that doesn't want to call artists, digital artists, for instance, or doesn't want to call musicians DJs?
It's interesting because I describe myself as a musician. Whenever there's a form to fill out and it asks what your occupation is, I say musician. When people ask me what do you do, I say I'm a musician. I then go on to qualify it. I say that I earn my income from DJing. I also say that I make music. I run a record label. I produce music. I have no... it was interesting. Somebody else described me as a musician first before I started calling myself a musician. One of my wife's flatmate, we were just talking, and she said, well, I always just, when I'm talking about you, I always just say you're a musician. And that was the first time I kind of thought about it. Well, yes, I am a musician. I have no problem calling myself a musician. I've been studying music since the age of 5. I can play it to a very high level. I can read music. I can write music. I am a musician. I've got no problem with that. The wider question as to how other people choose to describe themselves or what they call themselves, I think what we're touching on, because you're talking about, you know, the people who think that only painters are artists, or rather artists only paint. It becomes a question of where is the work. Okay, so what is the work? If you're a painter, it's very simple. Just you know, you can produce the work right there. For most contemporary artists now, you know, there are always going to be people that are like, well, I don't understand this, so it must not be art. But I think there's a wider acceptance of contemporary art now that a work need not necessarily be even physical. A work can be an action or something like that. But I think, on the whole, society, you know, people are more open to the idea of works of art being non-physical. So then, I mean, of course, I mean the philosophy of music, of art in music is interesting. I mean, where does the symphony exist? You know, you can burn a painting and you can destroy a work of art. How do you destroy Beethoven's Fifth Symphony? You know, so we're already. I mean, these are questions that have gone back a long way. I'm rambling, so I'm going to get to the point where I believe the work is when it comes to DJing, particularly. The work is the moment that exists between two people, or a number of people. That is the work. It's closest, perhaps. You know, I've looked to. You know, I'm an amateur student of art, and I suppose situations and actions are the closest kind of analogues within the conventional art world that I can find to describe where I believe the work to be when it comes to DJing a party. And the work exists. It exists in everybody's head. It's a thing that is felt and perceived, and it is a moment. It's that moment between people. And so, who creates the work? Well, everybody creates the work. It is a wholly collaborative work of art. And for how long does it last? It lasts as long as the experience is. And then it's what is the DJ's role? Is the DJ the artist? Well, I don't know, because I think because it's a collaborative work, the DJ is the DJ more like the curator? Is the DJ the facilitator? Because the DJ has an influence, you know. He chooses the music, creates the moment and creates the... I'm not there yet, and I'm comfortable in my own role without needing to as the sole author and creator of this moment. I like the collaboration because I like it.
Great.
That's what I believe. I don't know if I answered the question, but
no, definitely you did, and I kind of agree with what you said quite a lot. I just wanted to have a conversation with you in regard to this because I knew you had a good point. Regardless if you actually were trained, I mean, as a musician or not, because there are lots of DJs who aren't trained as musicians, but still I call them musicians, of course. I was reading I lived in London for a long time, and I read a couple of books by an English philosopher called James Clerk, not very famous one. And there is one that revolves around the concept of art making. And he was questioning himself, asking, is an artist the guy who's able to think art or a guy who's able to produce it? So is the process of art making the inspirational process, or the actual physical making of the object, which is a really good point because, I was speaking to my mother one day. I had a few friends who are DJs and musicians, and my mother doesn't play any instruments, but she dreams about sounds. Every morning she comes to me and says, "Oh my God, Matteo," because I play music. I used to be a musician. Now I just do contemporary art, but I still can't deal with it. So she was kind of singing me this tunes and asking me, "Can you make it? Can you play it for me?" And it was quite interesting because then I always called her, a composer, a producer, my mother. And then when a friend of mine came with his DJing tool, drum sessions, drum pads, I don't know how to call them, and he started making music without really playing notes, but playing patterns. My mother said, but what do you call your friend? And I said, he's a producer, he's a music producer. And my mother said, I want to be that as well. So, I really liked her point because she didn't really, sometimes people, when they are too educated in a subject, they become too critical and they break the subject. Sometimes institution and academic environments, they profess themselves as free-thinking places, but finally they're very not, because they're not open to new ideas and perhaps to the innocent mistakes that a normal mind would do. So very interesting. And so another question I wanted to ask, you deal with your radio show really well, and to be honest, it's really fun to hear you. I really like your spirit, that you go there and you perform. You do it really well. You bring happiness in the people's life for an hour every Thursday, I think, or every month on Thursday. Really cool. I was speaking to Charlie Bones a few weeks ago. I definitely know that you know Charlie.
I know Charlie.
Absolutely. I've tried to get him into the conversations, the Sunset conversation as well. But he said, because he's got a show every morning, so you have it less than him. So he uses all the energy to this show that he finally kind of gets consumed and doesn't have more energy to then perform in real life. So he was suffering this, and then London pressure and all those grey feelings that can happen now and then in a big city. So I wonder, how do you manage to cope with this kind of performative moments, which could be the radio show, but I'm sure you do lots of tours. I've seen you going around Europe very often. So how do you manage the amount of stress, the amount of energy that you put for the audience, but the amount of energy that you put for your family, for instance, or for your simple activities?
Yeah, it's a constant struggle, I think. It's really hard. There's kind of a perfect balance, of going and doing a few shows and then being able to come home and spend time, but it never really works. It always goes one way or the other. So there's obviously, the away working a lot, doing 3 shows a week, 3 shows one after the other in different cities, not much sleep, meeting strange people, being the only person that in the room, all those kind of social anxiety issues, hotels, being away. I have a 3-year-old son now, missing him, missing my wife obviously as well. All these sort of things that you have to balance. It's difficult, but then I've had some really, really shit jobs in my life, Matteo, and this doesn't come close to any of them. And so it's as hard as it is. I just think, well, okay, so now it's kind of like a job. It's not. What I'm doing is kind of like, it's a lot of the time it's amazing, it's unbelievable, it's dream come true kind of behaviour, and then quite a bit of the time as well, it's kind of a grind. But that is what having a job is kind of like. Having a job is a grind, and so I really don't mind. And I'm able to, again, because it's not. I'm able to set things aside. Sometimes you have to kind of dig deep to pull out a good performance to entertain people, but it's so far always been manageable. I've never had to really face any sort of catastrophe and then personal crisis on and DJ or something like that. But what I want to speak about is the other side of things. Is when things are quiet. because that's also quite difficult to deal with, and perhaps not really spoken as much. Everybody wants the grind, but then there are times, I had time off, like raising my son, and for a while things started to slow down, you know, and that period when gigs dry up and you're starting to worry, or when, you know, a creative sort of bout happens, you know, a creative drought happens, and you know, you're dealing with that. These are also, I think they're almost harder to deal with in some regards than the stresses. The main stress, I suppose, when you're really touring really hard and when you're going away a lot, is the drink and the drugs. I don't drink. I never really take drugs, certainly not when I'm working, and that is a real key. I think, you know, that's the
absolutely, because I think in the world of music, and it's not new actually, already with the American nights, music clubs, you know, the jazz clubs of the 40s and 50s and 60s, there was already this kind of you know, nightlife going on with music, and that also made musicians not having the kind of academic lifestyle of you know, very healthy life and then going to play in a theater, but it was rather an excessive experience of sounds and darkness and music and whatever comes afterwards. And of course, you know, the DJing is kind of the same scene which has evolved with new sounds, but it's following the same scenes. And I mean, you gave already an answer, but I was wondering if you could tell me a bit more of the all-at-night experience, which begins with a lot of excitement, and you know, you are a sort of shaman, being able to control movements of people. Like when I set up an exhibition, I kind of think how the people are going to feel about what I expose, what I exhibit, what they're going to be the action, you know. And in your case, you control their movements, their sensations, and you can control the time when they have to jump and, you know, like kiss each other, or the time when they have to flow and wait for the next tune. And, you know, that moment of being able to control a mass of lovely people that are there to listen to your music, and then, you know, having to live the night. How do you, what's the feeling of it?
You use the word control a lot then, and it's interesting, but I don't think it's a one-way thing. You know, I'm sure, you know, and it's very easy to allow yourself to fall into the sense of, like, I am in control, you know, and here I am, and I got these little knobs here, and this is just gonna, if I turn that knob up a bit, it's immediately going to, like, you know, impact everybody's night, and it's entirely up to me. But it kind of goes, and yet, you know, that's kind of fun, you know, like when if you turn a knob and you make it go a bit louder, and everybody feels that and cheers, well, that's a wonderful sensation. That's an immediate feedback loop there, and that feels good. I think it feels good for everybody. But I think I much prefer it to be more reactive. I don't think it's back to what I was saying before about the work, and about the work being collaborative. A great example is DJs and requests. DJs, you know, like contemporary DJs, like serious creative DJs. You know, you're supposed to hate requests. You're supposed to disdain them. But I love them if we've got one. I always remember something David Mancuso said in an interview, and he said, if someone asks for a piece of music and you've got it, and you just play it straight away, they buzz. And that's amazing. And then if you want to talk about creating a bit of energy, there's no easier way to create a bit of energy than giving someone what they want. And if they know exactly what you've got it, what on earth reason is denying it other than some misplaced sense of self-importance? So when it comes to control, yes, you are. I suppose you have a degree of influence that supersedes nearly anyone in the club except maybe the drug dealer, you know. But like. That doesn't. I don't know. I think you can. I think you're a proxy for everybody else. You know. You're not.
Yeah.
You're not. I mean, a shaman is a guide. Yeah. A shaman is a guide on. No one would. You know, is patently not like a priest or a. You know, he's not there to tell. I don't know. This is how it feels to me. Never having a shamanic journey, but that's you, right? They're supposed to take you along and show you around and just keep an eye out for you. Make sure you don't do anything too daft, and you know,
Great.
back out alive on the other side. And so that's a nice, I suppose, in that regard, then it becomes something collaborative. Again, it's about holding people's hands. I don't like this idea of the DJ as educator. I think that's incredibly arrogant. If people learn things along the way, that's great. It's not my role to teach. It's there to make people have a good time. Yeah.
Yeah, fantastic. No, I really feel you're very spontaneous, and you've never been arrogant in what you do. And it's very easy to become arrogant when you are promoting yourself, like artists, DJs, musicians. They can quickly turn into very arrogant people because they work on their personality only, and you know, it's really an easy step to become overconfident and so on.
You get caught up in your own narrative, don't you? And you conflate it with the world. You think that your world is the world, because all artists create worlds, right?
Yeah, no, absolutely.
They seek to manifest their own inner world.
And also, like, if I fall into the cliche, you know, and I mean, for many years, the DJ was a boy who had in the crew, he had much power in terms of sex, you know. So I think if we go back to the nature of human beings and we look at monkeys, you know, when a monkey can control more women, it kind of becomes, you know, the king of the group.
Well, yeah, I mean, I suppose that's again an interesting way of looking at it. It's a way. DJs still to this day, and I am one myself, so I can say this, tend not to be like your conventional alpha types. We're kind of pretty nerdy, we're collectors.
Yeah, well, things have changed.
Obsessive, we spend a lot of time. These are not your traditional alpha traits.
Absolutely.
But this provides us, but then, you know, if every human has this desire for dominance and to, you know, whatever, the drive that makes the alpha succeed, then I suppose DJing there's an evolutionary behavior underneath it.
I know. A bit cliche, and
I like it though.
But it's something that you need to mention because, of course, you guys are involved in the subject of DJing from a very progressive side. It's like a drop in the ocean to the DJ world if you look internationally. You know, in London, but if you go even in Italy and wherever you go, the DJ is, you know, the alpha man. Who's ready to fight for his praise.
You can see them all at the airport, you know, like all just all in black.
Yeah. Yeah. But no, absolutely. And things have changed very much in the latest years. Girls have started to wanted to be DJs as well. There's lots of women DJs recently, and there's also, as you said, lots of almost IT people who are experimenting with music. Who are not there just to have sex, for instance. But
Are you sure? I mean, a girl can be a DJ to get girls or boys. I think. I mean, it's.
Oh yeah, no, girls is fine, but
they're just not, you know, not being the conventional.
Yeah, I mean, they look very attractive when they are under console.
Well, when I was, we have a strong history in Manchester of female DJs. It's not easy. I spent a lot of time in Sydney. From 2000 to 2008, I lived in Sydney, and that was really where I fell in love with DJing. It's where I bought my first turntables. It's where I really started taking it seriously, and decided that it was what I wanted to do. And in Sydney, the best DJs are all women, pretty much, and always have been. So it strikes me as kind of, from my own personal experience, which is not the prevailing experience. This sudden focus on female DJs and this sudden upsurge in female, this sudden upsurge in talking about female DJs it's interesting to see, but also because I have difficulty reconciling it with my own experience to a certain degree because
Mm-hmm.
there's so many influential female DJs.
Mm-hmm.
Kate Monroe, DJ Gemma, Paula, Catherine Turner, Philippa from Piccadilly Records, you know, who else? You know,
Yes, that's, yeah.
name them all, Sophie Loiser, Miss Memory, you know, I mean, like loads of mega, Annabelle Gaspar, like loads of mega female DJs that whacked anybody, right? And this is all always. So, I guess it was, you know, the female superstar DJ is more of a new thing, perhaps.
Yeah,
and,
absolutely. No, I totally agree.
I welcome it. It's amazing. What's really good now, though, what's really, I mean, the one thing that's fucking brilliant about it all is that now you can go to a DJ night that's got like an all-female lineup, and it's not just like a chicks with decks night, you know, where it's just like, come on, let's give the girls a go, you know, like, and that because for a long time, I mean, I remember even in Australia, for a long time, if you're an up-and-coming female DJ, before you proved yourself, often you had to go through a few of those fucking awful nights. You know, and now
absolutely.
And there's more ways.
Now
and
I've heard
all the energy that the female DJs bring. I mean, it's always been like that. It's just, you know, it's maybe they're still trying to have sex, but they're not trying to do it as an obvious as way as men bloody.
No, I mean, I've got nothing against with the sex.
No. I know, I'm not.
I'm just, you know, like last year, I met an old, not an old guy, but you know, a kind of old guy, in England, and he said, you know, when I had your age, I watched because I'm Italian, so I watched a movie from an Italian director, Antonioni, and the movie was set in England. It's called Photo Reporter. I don't know if you know this movie.
No.
Oh my God, you need to watch it. It's fantastic. And then, you know, there was this very hectic guy, like in the 60s, shooting models in England, you know, with his fancy cars. And then he said, okay, I want to be a photographer because I want to shoot models, you know. And, you know, it's that kind of thing that I don't care why you approach a certain dream or subject, but it's quite important that while you mature it, you understand there's much more than just, you know, that initial reason. And then if you manage to build a kind of expertise and a kind of knowledge of the thing that you do, and you make special things, then you can have any kind of end in your head that you want. But I don't kind of want to judge for it. I just find a bit sad when you know, like, people don't even investigate about what they're doing because they're just interested in, you know, like being there. But not just as DJ, you know, playing for people, but like any job. Even if you're talking about finance, you know, if you want to become rich just to own everything, I think you lose the sense of money making or whatever. You know, if you're making art just to draw naked women, you know, it's kind of, you're losing the sense of a really, really important moment and experience, which is much deeper than just that. That's what
I mean, obviously. But, I mean, I think the thing is as well, if, you know, like, when you're young, I mean, I'm in my 40s now, but, you know, when you're young, and by young, I mean, in your late teens, in your 20s, in your, you know, early to mid 20s, you think you know everything, and you know, you don't really know that much because you've not been around that long. And so it's perfectly natural to have superficial motivations for whatever it is that you do, or to perhaps on the to be conscious only of superficial motivations. Maybe there is a very deep, unconscious driver for whatever it is that you do. That process of doing it will uncover, and then you will grow and learn more about yourself through doing it. But at the moment when you get into it, you know, it can just be something like becoming a photographer to take pictures of models, becoming a DJ to have sex. But then, yes, I mean, one would hope that, you know, your personal development would elaborate. It's interesting because I think, you see, specifically with the art world, you know, you have to go to art school really you have to have that formal training in order to be an artist. It's very difficult to succeed or to get by in the art world, it seems, without some sort of art degree. Because it's about the process, about the critical thinking that has to be put into you. It's not. They don't want you to have an art degree because you've been to painting school or you've been to learn how to, you know, fucking make a plate. They want you to have that process because you've got to have that deep set of that sense of critical theory within you in order to succeed in the art world, because it's all about critical. I look at that as a musician, and I sort of yearn for it sometimes. We don't have that framework. Which is freeing, so it means we can have a million genres and we can have people copying and doing all kinds of things, but we have a lot of ignorance as well that, you know, it's difficult. But the point I want to make, I suppose, is that I think the art world and that technique, that critical technique, there is an ideology behind it, and it does lend itself to some sense of self-discovery. So that most artists or most people who've been through art school have got at least a finer degree of understanding about themselves and the process than when they went in. That doesn't exist in music.
Yeah. Thanks, Simon.
It doesn't exist in many ways.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, I really enjoy speaking to you. I think I had a good instinct, and that instinct is kind of true. I'm really happy to have had you here today.
Yes, thank you. I'm glad to
you know, we need to get to an end, but perhaps we can continue this conversation next time I'll be in Manchester.
Oh, look, well, if we don't, I'll be offended.
Oh, fantastic. All right, Simon, I think it was very natural and very unpretentious the way I wanted. You know, we exchanged few ideas that we who dwell in ourselves, and I hope people can enjoy. All right.
Hope so too. And I'm going to go and watch the Antonini movie now.
Fantastic. Have a good evening and have fun.
Oh yes, that's great, Matteo. Thank you for this. I really enjoyed it.
Bye bye. Me too. Me too. Very much.
Goodbye.
Bye.